Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you'll meet a man who wrote a best-selling book called The Code of Behavior, and he's going to talk about the day he died. He'll explain next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, life is never the way you planned it. In fact, there's an old saying that God laughs at our plans, right? We make these plans and then God just chuckles and says, no, that's not the way it's going to be. And I have to constantly remind myself that I'm not in the driver's seat, I'm in the passenger seat. I can say, Lord, I think we should go right, but ultimately we're going to go wherever God wants you to go. And my next guest knows that very well. Jason Nemes. He is the author and speaker and a new good friend. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I am extremely grateful and just loaded with gratitude.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Well, I want people to know your story because not every guest who comes on the show writes a book, and not every guest who writes a book and gives me a book do I read. I read this. I read this book cover to cover. I read this book cover to cover, and it's a must-read. I'm telling you, it just breezes through. You sit down to read a chapter, and it just breezes through. So, Jason, why don't you let's start by talking about the book. Tell us what the Code of Behavior means.
Yeah. So every single person operates in a certain way day to day. There's different words for that, but for me, I call it the Code of Behavior. Right. It's what do you do when you get up? A lot of people, they go brush their teeth right away and then they go get in the shower right away. So we all operate from a certain code. Also a code of ethics. The military has a certain code that they operate by. A friend group will have a certain code that they operate by. And if you don't operate the way that circle of friends that they are, right, then you're going to be an outcast and you won't be hanging out with them very much anymore. So there's a code of behavior in every setting. And so when I was thinking about it, I was like, nobody's actually wrote a book and referenced it in that manner.
Yes.
So I was like, I'm going to be that person.
I love it. Let's show the book cover full screen so people can appreciate this. One, I love the look. It's a #1 international bestseller. That had to feel good.
It feels awesome. Yeah, it's a dream come true. And what's really cool is the date that it got released. I don't think we talked about it.
No.
But it was a year from the day that I died, April 4th, 2022.
Okay. I want to push pause on that for a second. We're going to come back to that.
Okay.
You've done something that I've never done. I've never done a TED Talk, and you nailed it. You nailed it.
Thank you. That was one of the most horrific, scary, incredible, phenomenal moments of my life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you're timed. I mean, if you go long, they just pull the plug, don't they?
Yeah, well, so after you speak, you have to apply to get the TEDx, and then assuming you get it and you do your speech, if you go over on time, you automatically are not published.
Wow.
So everybody who does a TED Talk doesn't necessarily get published. They have to go through the screening process of TED reviewing it, make sure you abide by all of their rules or all the regulations they have. So yeah, if you go above time, it's a done deal. So we had 18 minutes, and I planned for 15.
Okay, we're going to play the first couple minutes. Go ahead and roll it.
You don't have to die to decide to live. So when people hear that I have had not just one heart attack, but 2, I get the same reaction and response from everybody. They literally look like a cartoon character. Their eyes get real big, their jaw drops to the ground, and they're just like, how on earth is it that somebody who is in as great of shape as you are and is as young as you are, how on earth Have you had 2 heart attacks? Is it genetics or what is it? And the truth about it is, I suffered majorly from addiction. I mean, I had a massive addiction that pretty much nobody knew about. And I just want to take a moment to say, anybody in the audience right now, anybody that is watching live streamed, and anybody who will see this speech later on, if you are going through an addiction, let this be the story that lifts you out of that and has you understand that there are people out there that are beating addiction and your life is worth it and you can do it too. And so what's interesting about my addiction is that I would go to the doctor every year and I would get my blood work done every single year, multiple times a year. And all the results would always come back perfect. It got to a point where I would literally question them. Like, are you sure you have the right person's results? Because when I tell you, again, I had a pretty severe addiction. We were going like 5 days a week, 6 days a week, sometimes even 7 days a week and not sleeping. I was like, well, maybe I'm Superman because I'm over here doing a lot of things, putting a lot of things into my body that I should not be. And I guess like I can just keep doing it and everything will be great.
Okay, so Jason, help us understand, when you're in the throes of addiction, you are weakening your heart muscles? Is that what's happening?
Well, you put your heart under a lot of stress, and anything that's under a lot of stress will deteriorate, will not be functioning as it should. So when you do that compounded, not just day after day or month after month, but we're talking year after year, yeah, I mean, you're going to do a lot of damage.
Absolutely. Okay, let's. There's a chapter in your book, and it's right up at the very top, the day you died.
Yeah.
All right, tell us about the day you died.
So, of all days, it was Easter Sunday, and it was a beautiful day outside, and my girlfriend at the time, her and I, we decided to go to the gym because a buddy of mine invited us to come and he wanted me to train him through a leg workout. So we get there, we go through the workout, then afterwards there was a basketball conversation that came up. I won't get too much into it, but somebody wanted a rematch with something. So we went downstairs with the thought in mind of playing Around the World, which is a shooting game. Mm-hmm. So there was no like actual basketball supposed to be played. And there were these guys down there. There were 3 of them and 3 of us. And so they challenged us to 3-on-3. Mind you, I was over 240 pounds at the time. I'm 220 now. And I was bulking. I was putting weight on to then cut up for summer. And so I also had low top shoes on. So I was not in a position really to be playing basketball in that sense. I wasn't really doing cardio, so I wasn't really in shape for it. But I said, okay, let's do it. That's just the competitor in me. So we play, and the whole time I'm huffing and puffing, but I'm not thinking anything beyond I'm just out of shape, right? Because that's what would make sense. And so leaving the gym, I noticed that I started getting a really bad headache, like an excruciating headache. I was having some trouble breathing, pains in my chest, and then my arm was going numb. And so get in the car, start driving, and the headache was just so bad, I was like, I want to go get some Advil or something, some aspirin, right, from the gas station. And I don't even like to take aspirin much, but this was an intense headache. So I stopped at the gas station, get back in the car, and then head towards the house. And I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and I'm just like, something is not right. I want to go to an ER clinic. Mind you, we were in Austin, Texas. Normally there's very bad traffic. And it was Easter, so there was no cars on the road. It's unbelievable how everything played out. So I looked up a clinic. There was one 5 minutes away. I got there in 5 minutes. And here's a little tip for everybody. I found this out later on, speaking to somebody who was an ER doctor. If you have a heart attack, you have to go to an urgent care that is an ER style. If you go to a regular urgent care, they cannot treat heart attacks.
Wow.
They either call an ambulance to come get you, or you drive to the emergency room. I happened to pick one that was an ER urgent care, and I didn't mean to do that. So I run in there and like, sir, how can we help you? I said, man, I'm pretty sure I'm having a heart attack. And then he had the audacity at that moment to ask me for my ID, which I had left my wallet in the car. So mind you, I'm having a massive heart attack at this time. I go back outside to get my wallet. I come back inside, present him with my ID. He did have it in his good graces to let me fill out paperwork later on. So they rushed me to the back and they hooked me up to an EKG. And I'll never forget the look on the doctor's face when he read what the EKG said. And he just looked at me and he said, "Sir, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're suffering a severe heart attack right now." And in my mind, this was my second heart attack. And so I was like, I didn't even know that I had a heart attack before. Doctors exaggerate things, and I truly think this helped too, because the power of the mind is everything. And in my mind, I was leaving that urgent care within an hour. Like, that's where I was. And it's funny, because I did leave that urgent care roughly around an hour later, just not the way I thought I was gonna leave, we'll say that.
They take you to the hospital.
They did take me to the hospital. And I'll tell you another story, really small piece of this, but I'd sent my mom a text message. And I want you all to understand that I lost my little brother to addiction. And what stemmed my heart attacks, it all came because of addiction. So I texted my mom, and I thought later on, why on earth would I do this? I texted my mom. I said, "Mom, I am having a severe heart attack right now," and I put my phone away. And thinking later, it's like, what must have been going on through her mind in that moment reading that message, right? But the reason I sent her that message was because in my mind, I truly was leaving that urgent care within the hour. Because I was like, this is just a speed bump. It's not a roadblock. I'll be out of here. Everything's gonna be fine. That's where my mind really was. And so I know that's why I sent her that message. Looking back, definitely not the smartest thing to do. So I end up having the heart attack, and like deadly, right? And I find out it's 100% blockage of my widowmaker, which they call it a widowmaker for a reason. It makes widows. And so I ended up dying, but right before I died, I'll never forget asking God to help me. I told them, I was communicating back and forth with them how I was feeling, like, okay, the pain is back, okay, the pain is going away a little bit. They're giving me different things to chew and to swallow. And I was like, I could feel myself losing breath. Like, I could feel myself fading out. And I'll just never forget telling them, like, I feel like I'm about to die. Y'all got to do something. Please help me. God, please help me. And then I was out.
Wow.
And I could have probably made up some crazy story and ended up on Oprah or Ellen, which hopefully I end up on those shows telling my story anyway. But it's like I took a nap. It's as if I just went to sleep. I didn't see anything. But actually, I took that later on as I didn't have a close enough relationship with God. So my faith has changed tremendously. And I'm very grateful for that. It's funny because the darkest, scariest moment in my life actually ended up being the most beautiful moment for the rest of my life.
Wow. I'm getting chills, and we're gonna push pause on that for a second. We're gonna come back to that. He's an amazing speaker. He speaks all over the globe, and he inspires people. And we found his sizzle reel. Let's go ahead and roll that.
Success is about consistency. It's about every single day. It's not just on the days you feel like it. Because there's gonna be more days you don't feel like doing things than you do. I promise you that.
I heard Jason Nemes not too long ago. And what I learned was that what I thought would disqualify me is what actually qualifies me.
Believe you can experience a great life. Sometimes we need to get around other people that have the belief in us because we lack belief in ourselves, right? So who are we hanging around? Who's our circle of influence? Do they match our past or our future?
Jason's message is so inspiring, just to watch someone who has suffered all the way actually to the point of death and was awakened to life, and now to see the intensity, to see the impact, to see the inspiration that he brings just by walking into a room.
How does someone go from when they're at rock bottom and they push through and they get the success? So if you have a chance to see Jason, go see him, go speak to him. He's in your corner and he's gonna take you to the next level.
I had a mindset now of God's got bigger plans for me than I ever even could have imagined. How everything happened, the widowmaker heart attack, my body's got no blood flow or oxygen through it for 2 hours, and everything is perfect. Memory's perfect, nothing wrong. So I'm like, yo, I am here for a reason, which we all are. It was like a slap in my face, like, yo, wake up to your potential, wake up to what you are meant to do in this world.
I just resonated with Jason throughout, and I cannot wait to read his book. I got it right after the speech, and so keep speaking, keep writing, and I will follow you, Jason.
If you get a chance to hear him in person, you need to hear him. You need to get his book. This man has a testimony. He's the real deal, and he has helped me tremendously.
Where you are currently is a direct reflection of your level of discipline. So everything you've done in your previous life has gotten you to where you are right now. There's no accident at where you are right now. And if you're unhappy with it, then it's time to change.
And just amazing, Jason. The way there's a humility about you, and I think obviously you were brought to your knees. You came this close to death, and so I think you resonate with all kinds of audiences. Let's talk first about the high schools, because you do go into high schools and speak.
I do. I absolutely love speaking to the youth. At the end of the day, I mean, the youth are the ones who will be the adults, right? And I feel like youth, they just need help. I mean, a lot of us need help, but especially the youth in regards to bullying and choices they make and the feeling, the need to fit in, right? But thinking that certain crowds are the in crowds and the cool ones, but they're the ones that are going down the bad paths.
Yes.
And understanding to recognize that and that will not produce you a great life.
Yes.
And I've been on both sides. I've had a lot of success in making the right decisions, and I've had not so much success making wrong decisions. I've even had the success making the wrong decisions. And so I've been all around in that aspect. And I know for a fact the people that you want to be hanging around and what code of behavior will lead you to the best life.
Yes.
And that's really, again, kind of going back to that. That was the premise of writing the book, is because I've been certain ways through my life. I've made certain choices and decisions through my life, and I know what those results will bring.
Yes. And it applies to corporate America as well.
Absolutely.
Every company in the country is probably struggling with the same issues, quiet quitting, employees not motivated.
Right.
And so many chapters in the book have to do with taking action and not complaining about your situation, but doing something about it.
Yeah, most people sit around, they complain, they wake up, they're not excited about anything, they're not excited about achieving goals. They just want to complain, and what you think about, you bring about. What you speak about, you also bring about. So if you're just operating through life and you are complaining and you're not motivated, then you're just going to attract more of that. And if all you and I always say this, like, the reason why people pretty much for the most part make just enough to pay their bills and get by is because that's what they're focused on.
Yes.
They're only focused on just getting by. So what does it look like on the other side if you change your code of behavior, step into your greatness? What would your life look like in that sense, right? What would it look like? Yeah. So.
And there's probably a faith-based message because your heart attack happened on Easter Sunday. 3 days later, you're leaving the hospital.
Yeah. So I'll go here. How much time we got? A couple minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So half my family is Jewish and half my family is Christian. And so I was always right in the middle because I didn't want to upset the other side of the family.
Right.
Right? And as I got a little bit older, all of my friends were Christian. And then as I got older and older into business and entrepreneurship, my mentors were very Christian. And so I would attend church with them. And I would always feel a certain type of way in the church. Mm-hmm. I would feel different. And it was a great feeling, and I couldn't wait to go back the following Sunday. And then that day happened on Easter where I had a massive heart attack and died, and I asked God to help me. And there was also a nurse there named Debbie, and I didn't get too much into her, but she doesn't normally work at that clinic. She normally worked at the ER in the hospital, specializing in heart attacks.
Wow.
So I'm just telling you, there was so much to that day, right? But when
when I really look at everything, I don't ignore signs. So yeah, the heart attack and dying on Easter with very small percent of people surviving a widowmaker heart attack. So then on the third day, being released from the hospital, no damage to my heart, pump function normal, as if nothing happened. Literally, I walked out of the hospital. And then 2 weeks later, I was at a store. Lady walks up to me. The store is completely packed. She could have talked to anybody, but the only person she talked to was me. And she said, "Sir," she's like, "can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah, what's up?" She said, "You have this amazing energy about you." And she handed me a Jesus Loves You card. And she said, "I just wanted you to know that Jesus and God wanted me to tell you that they're watching over you and everything will be okay." This was 2 weeks after the heart attack, and I had never met this lady in my life. And I'm like, okay, like I'm listening. Like, okay, I'm a believer. I get it.
And so we've got 1 minute left. What I want you to talk.
Passionate,
No, I get it, and I'm glad you do. So clearly God had more work for you to do. What do you think? Why do you think God gave you a second chance?
Well, I think that God gave me a second chance because He wants to use me to spread the word and give people hope. Because I'm telling you right now, I was in such a dark place. People didn't even know that I was in a dark place. I was using drugs. There were times, it was 7 days a week I was using drugs, barely sleeping. The fact that I'm alive is a miracle. And I mean, I haven't used drugs since June, which is another story. That's another, because I did mess up one more time, but it's been since June 3 years ago, right? Wow. So this June will be 3 years. Wow. And so, I mean, if I can beat it, I think anybody can. And so He needs soldiers to get out there and spread the word and the power of God and Jesus and just what's possible for life when you operate from the right code of behavior.
Amazing. That's a great way to end this segment. Yeah. We're also going to leave you with his website, which is jasonlnemes.com.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jason.
Thank you. Grateful.
You
so
bet.
Grateful.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.